Aya Wilson didn't cry because she lost. She cried because she realized she no longer mattered, at least not the way she used to. After years of being the WNBA's face, her finals appearance landed with a thud, empty seats, low ratings, and barely a ripple of media coverage. Why? Because Caitlin Clark wasn't there. Clark's explosive rookie run has transformed the league, but her absence exposed something chilling.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Without her, fans didn't show up. And for Wilson, that reality hit hard. She gave everything to this league, but now it feels like the spotlight only has room for one name. This isn't just about Wilson. It's a broader reckoning for the league. The video explores how Clark's influence has shifted attention so sharply that even championship-level play can't compete. The emotional toll on veterans is real, sidelined not by skill, but by the market. Aya Wilson's tears reflect that deeper fear, that the league is no longer built for her era. The WNBA's future now hinges on whether it can evolve fast enough to honor both its past and its rising stars, or risk losing the players who carried it this far. That Aya Wilson didn't cry because she lost. She cried because she realized she no longer mattered, at least not the way she used to. After years of being the WNBA's face, her finals appearance landed with a thud, empty seats, low ratings, and barely a ripple of media coverage. Why? Because Caitlin Clark wasn't there. Clark's explosive rookie run has transformed the league, but her absence exposed something chilling. Without her, fans didn't show up. And for Wilson, that reality hit hard. She gave everything to this league, but now it feels like the spotlight only has room for one name. This isn't just about Wilson. It's a broader reckoning for the league. The video explores how Clark's influence has shifted attention so sharply that even championship-level play can't compete. The emotional toll on veterans is real, sidelined not by skill, but by the market. Aya Wilson's tears reflect that deeper fear, that the league is no longer built for her era. The WNBA's future now hinges on whether it can evolve fast enough to honor both its past and its rising stars, or risk losing the players who carried it this far. Aya Wilson sat on the bench, tears in her eyes, during what should have been a career-defining moment. The WNBA finals were happening, but you wouldn't know it from the empty seats, the low energy, or the quiet buzz around the arena. For the league's biggest star, this wasn't just a loss on the scoreboard. It was something deeper, a realization, a slow, painful recognition that the spotlight had moved on. She hadn't been cut from a team. She wasn't out of contract. But to a growing number of fans, it felt like she'd been fired from relevance. Not by any official announcement, but by a collective shift that left her and other veterans standing in the shadow of one name: Caitlin Clark. The contrast couldn't have been more brutal. Just weeks earlier, Clark had sold out arenas. Viewership was up. Ticket prices soared. Casual fans who never watched a minute of WNBA basketball were suddenly tuned in. And then, just like that, she wasn't in the finals, and everything changed. Empty seats, dropping ratings, a championship series that, for all its importance, barely registered outside the most loyal circles. Aya Wilson was still playing elite basketball, still leading, still grinding every minute like it mattered. But the cameras, the energy, the narrative, it had shifted. This was the finals, the moment everything builds toward. And yet, the atmosphere felt more like a scrimmage than a celebration. That's not on Wilson. That's not on the players who earned their place on that stage. That's on the league. A league that, in its effort to ride the wave of Clark's popularity, failed to build a sustainable foundation that honored all of its stars. The focus on Caitlin Clark didn't just elevate her, it accidentally erased others. Clark's influence can't be overstated. She's a game changer. She filled arenas. Her jersey sales skyrocketed. She broke broadcast records. She brought an entire new generation of fans into women's basketball. But when the finals arrived and she wasn't there, the league's dependency on her became painfully obvious. The energy dropped. The media narrative disappeared. And the players who were on that court, who had earned their shot, were left to carry a championship series with none of the momentum the league had worked so hard to build. And Aya Wilson? She felt all of it. Her frustration wasn't hidden. It didn't need to be. The emotional outbursts, the visible anger, it wasn't just about the scoreboard. It was about watching a league that you helped build seemingly forget you existed the second someone else took the spotlight. This isn't bitterness. This is the harsh reality of a league that's gone all in on one story. And it shows. The WNBA has always walked a tightrope when it comes to attention. Every spike in viewership, every burst of media coverage feels like a fragile victory. And with Clark, the league saw an opportunity it couldn't resist. But instead of using her stardom to bring more attention to the league as a whole, it became tunnel vision. All roads led to Clark. And when she wasn't there, it was like the GPS stopped working. That's not Caitlin's fault. That's a systemic failure. The disparity in ticket prices told the story. Games featuring Clark had resale prices reaching hundreds of dollars. The finals? You could walk in for a fraction of the cost. That wasn't about the quality of basketball. It was about who people came to see, and more importantly, who they didn't. Clark's presence became the league's heartbeat. Her absence revealed just how much was being propped up by her alone. This isn't sustainable. A league can't thrive on one player. It can't hinge its entire growth strategy on a single face. Because when that face isn't on the floor, everything else collapses. Ratings, energy, fan engagement, even the meaning of the championship. And let's be honest, this finals wasn't just a marketing failure. It was a cultural moment that exposed a deeper divide. Veteran players like Wilson have built their entire careers on consistency, excellence, leadership. They've shown up year after year and delivered. But they're now being eclipsed not by lack of talent, but by a league that no longer knows how to balance star power with legacy. The emotional weight of that imbalance was all over Wilson's face. You don't cry on the bench during the finals unless you're carrying more than just game pressure. She wasn't crying because she lost a step. She was crying because the meaning of everything she's worked for is being rewritten in real time, and she's being written out of it. Fans who followed the league for years saw it. They felt it. The cultural shift isn't subtle anymore. New fans are entering the space, many drawn in by the spectacle of Clark. And that's not a bad thing. Growth is necessary. But that growth has to include respect for the players who made that growth possible. Instead, it's turned into a spotlight monopoly. The WNBA's gamble on media hype and celebrity momentum has created an ecosystem where one player dictates the league's visibility. And when she's not playing, the system doesn't know how to function. Wilson's tears weren't just about being overshadowed. They were about being sidelined emotionally in a league that used to center players like her. She deserved better, not because she's a veteran, but because she's still one of the best in the game, still dominant, still carrying the culture and competitive standard of the league. She didn't fade, she was pushed out of frame. This moment should have been a wake-up call for league leadership, a clear signal that star power can't replace structure. That attention isn't loyalty. That ticket spikes don't mean long-term stability, and that if you can't hold interest during the finals, you have a bigger problem than marketing. The WNBA is at crossroads. It can continue to funnel all its energy into one superstar and pray she stays healthy, engaged, and available. Or it can recalibrate. Invest in building multiple stars. Create space for rookies and veterans to coexist without one being erased for the other. Clark isn't the problem. The imbalance around her is. Wilson's visible heartbreak is what happens when a league forgets that growth and respect must go hand in hand. That you can't promote empowerment while sidelining the very players who embodied that message before it was trendy. There's a cultural and emotional divide now. A split between what the league once represented and what it's quickly becoming. And if that divide widens the long-term fans, they'll start walking away. And the veterans? They'll stop believing the league has their backs. No one wins in that scenario, not even Clark. The league's survival depends on its ability to hold complexity, to recognize that growth doesn't mean leaving people behind, that new energy and old excellence can coexist, that a finals without one rookie should still feel like a finals. And the next time Aya Wilson steps onto the court for a championship, The league better make damn sure she isn't crying on the bench because no one showed up. She deserves the crowd. She deserves the spotlight. She deserves to be part of the story. Because if the WNBA can't figure out how to honor its veterans while embracing its future, it won't be around long enough to have either. So what do you think? Has the league gone too far in its obsession with star power? Is Aya Wilson being pushed out of the spotlight unfairly? Can the WNBA recover from the cracks this finals exposed? Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that cut through the noise and tell you what's really happening on and off the court. Because this isn't just basketball anymore. It's the future of the game, and it's on the line. Let's just call it what it is. Aya Wilson, one of the greatest players the WNBA has ever seen, was reduced to a background character in her own league's championship series. And the worst part? The league let it happen. This isn't just a missed marketing opportunity. This is the unraveling of everything the WNBA has been building for years. The finals were supposed to be the climax, the celebration, the culmination of a season full of blood, sweat, and months of competition. And yet, the seats were empty. The ratings dipped. The media barely flinched. Why? Because Caitlin Clark wasn't there. And without her, the league felt hollow. That's not just on the fans. That's not on casuals. That's on the WNBA itself. They chose this moment. They built a machine around one player and neglected the foundation. Players like Aya Wilson, who have carried the league on their backs without complaint, without flash, and without needing viral moments to justify their greatness. But now it's like that greatness has an expiration date. And Aya felt that, deeply. Her emotions weren't a weakness. They were a truth serum. A moment where the camera caught the exact expression of what it feels like to be overlooked in real time. She wasn't upset because she lost a game. She was upset because the finals, the biggest stage of her season, felt like an afterthought. The painful irony? Aya Wilson is everything the WNBA claims to represent. She's a dominant force on the court. She's poised off of it. She's a leader, an advocate, and a personality that has always shown up for the league, even when the league didn't show up for her. And now, in a finals series that should have centered her as the main character, she was treated like a side note. This isn't about taking anything away from Caitlin Clark. Clark's presence has undoubtedly elevated the league's visibility in ways that are historic. But when her absence causes the entire structure to falter, that's not success. That's a warning. The WNBA has become so dependent on one narrative that it's forgotten how to tell the others. And that's what's so deeply frustrating for veterans like Wilson. Because there's no win in this setup. If they perform brilliantly, but Clark isn't involved, it's silence. If they struggle and Clark is in the mix, it becomes a referendum on whether they're still relevant. It's a lose-lose, and it's demoralizing. The emotional and cultural divide has never been more obvious. You have a wave of new fans who've entered the space because of Caitlin Clark. That's a good thing. No one's arguing that. But they've been conditioned to see the league through the lens of her journey. Everything else becomes background noise. So when Clark didn't make the finals, they tuned out. And suddenly, players like Wilson were left carrying a product that felt empty without its marketing centerpiece. And you could feel that weight. The finals were supposed to be about elite competition, but they became a glaring reminder of how unbalanced the attention has become. A finals MVP performance with no fanfare. Career-defining moments that felt eerily quiet. Social media feeds that barely blinked. This isn't sustainable. The league can't keep pushing the narrative that it's bigger than one player when the product completely collapses without her. Because then you're not building a league, you're building a temporary attraction. And when the novelty wears off, what's left? That's what Wilson's tears were saying. That she's not just hurt, she's exhausted. Exhausted from carrying this league when no one was watching. And now, when the lights are finally here, they've moved past her. The strategy isn't just short-sighted, it's insulting. It sends a message to every veteran, every core player, every foundational piece. You're disposable if you're not trending. And once that message sinks in, it doesn't go away. How do you tell players like Wilson to keep grinding when you made it clear that media hype trumps performance? How do you ask them to mentor rookies lead locker rooms, sell tickets, build culture, and then cut them out of the main story. Because, make no mistake, this finals cut them out. Ratings were down, engagement dropped, attendance cratered, and nobody seemed to care. The league shrugged. The coverage moved on. And the fans who do care? They watched Aya Wilson cry and knew exactly why. Because that wasn't just about the game. That was about being erased. This is a crossroads moment. The WNBA can keep pushing forward on a star-first, Clark-centric model. Or it can hit pause and recenter on the league, not just the player. That means investing in all of its athletes. Building narratives that go beyond popularity. Celebrating players like Aya Wilson who have been dominant year after year, not just the one whose name is currently trending. That means honoring the finals with the respect it deserves, regardless of who's on the floor. Because if a championship series doesn't feel like a must-see event without one player, you're not building a league. You're building a dependency. And that's the scariest part of all. What happens if Caitlin Clark isn't available next season? What happens if she gets injured, or decides to step away, or simply has a down year? Did the whole league shut down emotionally? Because based on what we just saw during the finals, the answer feels a little too close to yes. And it shouldn't be. The WNBA has too much talent, too much history, too much heart to be this fragile. Aya Wilson isn't the past, she's the present. And if the league continues to treat her like a relic instead of a pillar, the damage won't just be emotional. It'll be structural. This isn't about favoritism. It's about survival. It's about treating the finals like the pinnacle, not a placeholder. It's about making sure that when a player like Wilson plays for a title, she's not crying on the bench because the lights went dim. That image of her breaking down wasn't just sad. It was symbolic. Symbolic of a league forgetting its roots while sprinting towards something flashier. You want growth. Build on respect. You want longevity? Don't abandon your champions. You want real fandom? Teach new viewers to appreciate all your stars, not just the ones selling jerseys this season. The clock is ticking. The emotional fallout is already happening. And if the WNBA doesn't adjust soon, it's going to lose more than ratings. It's going to lose the very players who gave it meaning in the first place. Let's not pretend this isn't a crisis. Aya Wilson crying on national television while delivering finals-level basketball should have been a viral moment. Not for pity, but for truth. For impact. For the reality check that this league desperately needs. She didn't get fired from a team, but emotionally, she got fired from the narrative. The question is, will the league hire her back? And if you're still not convinced that this moment marks a breaking point for the WNBA, ask yourself this. How do you recover from a championship series that didn't feel like one? The WNBA Finals, the culmination of months of battles, rivalries, and personal sacrifice, should be unmissable. It should be loud, emotional, revered. But this year, it felt like something was missing. And it wasn't just Caitlin Clark. It was the investment, the spotlight, the urgency. It was the league. This isn't about one bad game or one slow night of attendance. This is about the league's biggest platform collapsing under the weight of its own marketing gamble. And the one left holding the emotional bag? Aya Wilson, a veteran, an MVP, a champion. She didn't just deserve the moment, she earned it. But the league didn't give it to her. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. When Aya Wilson teared up on the bench, it wasn't about physical exhaustion. It was about watching the machine she helped build suddenly turn its back. She wasn't just watching the ratings fall or the stands go half empty. She was watching herself become invisible in the story of her own league. And the silence around her tears? Deafening. No think pieces. No viral posts. No surge of attention that typically follows an emotional star athlete after a tough loss. Why? Because she didn't fit the current media narrative. She wasn't the trending name. She wasn't the player the league had spent months funneling every ounce of attention into. She was the player that made all of this possible. And somehow, she was treated like a footnote. This isn't just an Aya Wilson issue. It's a structural failure. A league failure. The WNBA wanted to grow, and that's good. It needs to grow. But growth without depth is just noise. The league has so many stars, so many personalities, so many players who've been showing up, night after night for years. But none of that seemed to matter once the hype around Clark reached full speed. The result? A championship that felt more like a placeholder than a peak. A finals MVP performance that got less attention than a Clark warm-up video. And one of the league's most important figures sitting on the bench with tears streaming down her face while the world looked the other way. It's more than disrespect. It's neglect. And it's not just about who got coverage. It's about what this does to the players who've built the league from the inside out. How do you ask veterans to continue pouring themselves into this when the league seems willing to throw them under the bus for a few clicks? How do you tell young players to grow into leadership roles when they're watching leaders like Aya get passed over in real time? How do you claim to be about empowerment when the most empowered voices in the league are silenced by omission? Because make no mistake, this was silence. A willful, glaring absence of energy when it mattered most. And the result? Players are starting to feel it. The disconnect, the fragility, the sense that everything they worked for can be pulled away if it doesn't fit the new narrative. That's not just disappointing. It's dangerous. Because once you teach players that their value is conditional, that their worth is tied to social media engagement, broadcast slots, or a hot storyline, they stop believing in the long game. They stop believing in loyalty. They stop believing in you. The league can't afford that. Not when it's still trying to prove itself in the broader sports world. Not when every season is still an audition for more sponsors, more coverage, more legitimacy. You can't build something lasting by tearing down your own. And that's exactly what this finals felt like. A quiet dismantling of everything players like Aya Wilson have sacrificed for. No cheers, no fanfare, no acknowledgement of the emotional toll. Just silence. And if you're a fan watching all this unfold, you feel it too. That subtle but unmistakable message. If it's not Clark, it doesn't count. If it's not viral, it's not valuable. If it's not marketable, it's not memorable. That's a dangerous road. Because Clark's not going to play 365 days a year. She's not going to be everywhere at once. She's not going to carry the league alone. And she shouldn't have to. This isn't a Clark problem. It's a leadership problem. A leadership problem that says short-term engagement matters more than long-term investment. That says veteran talent is expendable if the spotlight has shifted. That says the finals don't matter unless a certain name is attached to them. That's not growth. That's failure. And unless the WNBA starts to course correct now, it risks burning through all of the goodwill it spent the last decade earning. Because Aya Wilson didn't fail the league. The league failed her. She showed up. She performed. She led. She delivered. And in return, she got a front-row seat to her own erasure. That moment, her tears, her pain, her visible frustration wasn't weakness. It was the cost of carrying a league that no longer seemed interested in carrying her. The WNBA owes her more. It owes all its veterans more. Not just lip service. Not just Instagram posts. Visibility. Coverage. Respect. And a reminder to new fans that the league isn't new. It's evolving. And that evolution has a foundation made up of players like Aya Wilson. So if you felt something watching her cry, good. That means you're paying attention. Now, let's talk about what comes next. The league can't keep putting all its eggs in one basket. It can't pretend it's healthy when it can't hold momentum without one player on the court. It can't keep sidelining its stars in their own championship series and then wonder why the ratings drop. There's still time to fix this, but only if the league is willing to listen, not just to the data or the headlines, but to the players whose faces carry the weight of a million unspoken truths. Aya Wilson spoke one without saying a word. So what are we going to do about it? Let us know in the comments. Was this finals a wake-up call for the league? Has the WNBA lost sight of the bigger picture? And what needs to change before more players like Aya Wilson start questioning whether this league is still worth the fight? Subscribe for more unfiltered, honest coverage. Because the tears are real, the silence is real, and the consequences? They're already here.